evening. The time is 6:02 p.m. and I'll call this meeting, a regular meeting of the Goose Creek Board of Trustees to order. Mr. Sampson, was this meeting properly posted?
Yes, it was.
And do we have a quorum?
Yes.
And for the record, we have 6 members present and 1 absent at this time. We'll turn it over to Dr. Price for opening exercises.
Good evening. Good evening, President Clem, board members, Superintendent O'Brien, faculty, staff, and parents and guests in the audience and across the district. Tonight, our opening prayer will be brought to us by our very own President, Ricky Clem. The pledges will be led by Charles Whistler and Samantha Aguilar from Baytown Junior School.
Everybody please stand. And please join me in bowing your head. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful evening when we can come together, make decisions that will form and shape the future of our school district. I ask you to bless each person here tonight and lay your guiding hand on them if they have a part in our agenda tonight. I also thank you for these students and their parents and their talent that you're going to show us tonight. I ask you to give them safe travel as they go home tonight. And I ask you to lead, guide, and direct this board in all the decisions we make tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
The pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated. Well, board members and guests, we are going to be honored with Baytown Junior School band, part of their band department. They're going to play a medley of 5 songs. The songs Go Team Go, arranged by Lewis, Louie Louie by Kingsman, Iron Man by Butler, Sonic Boom by Nielsen, and 7 Nation Army by White Stripes. All of tonight's arrangements are by Lewis. Mr. Lewis, take it away. Let's hear it for Baytown Junior School.
Mr. Lewis, I think they're ready for Friday Night Lights. I think they're ready.
Our students participating tonight was Samantha Aguilar, Janelle Cabrera,
Wave when they call your name.
Jose Flores, Abril Hernandez, Corrine Lacosta, Daniel Pack, Punt Patel, Yadin Ramirez, Eduardo Torres, Charles Whistler. The students are under the direction of Band Director Richard Lewis and Caleb Green and Principal Judy Macchia.
Do we have parents of these students here? Parents, please stand and be recognized. Thank you for sharing your students with us tonight. And Mr. Levan, have you noticed how the principals always run to the Fine Arts Department when it's their month to do opening exercises? Yeah, just not put that in your notes. Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Great job, guys. We're very proud of you.
Thank you.
And I believe, Dr. Price, you've got a recognition or two to do before we move on to the hearing portion. Is that correct?
Can we put in the
Yes,
record, Ms. Garcia, for the record, Mr. Renteria arrived? If yeah, you got it? Okay, thank you.
Practicing for the high school. All right, I'm going to do a quick little presentation real quick about the Operations Services Department. I'm Dr. Anthony Price, Chief Operations Officer. Here I'm with four of my directors of those departments. We were just invited to Florida to speak on school safety and pandemic best practices across the state and across the nation. Of course, last month you heard about the Transportation Department and our wonderful people such as Teresa Mendoza, Brandy Ward, Marshall Land, Patricia Ducote, Louis Chavarria, and of course the director, Mr. Rick Waltershot. These people gained state and national recognition for the Transportation Department. So we wanted to let you know that in operations, we do a lot of things behind the scene, but we also gain the recognition across the state and across the nation. And one thing our illustrious leader, Dr. O'Brien, has taught us is that we toot our own horns. So we're going to toot the horn here for operations. Also, this is leading up to our operations warehouse. We have one of the top warehouses. I think we may be second to one that we are modeling ours after. We have within our warehouse storefronts such as Granger, Air Systems, Lowe's, Fisher Hardware, and Sherwin-Williams. This allows our technicians to load up their trucks in the evenings to be ready for tomorrow's work orders and get prepared. It cuts down on windshield time and stand-in line time so we can be more efficient and more productive. Our maintenance department, as you know, we completed district-wide repairs and projects due to 3 major storms, Uri, Viola, and Nicholas, and a small pandemic called COVID-19. You may have heard of that also. But we also gained state and national recognition with our ABM $43 million project. Our maintenance department, we have certainly district employees who are known throughout the district for their outstanding job and commitment. Our employee of the quarter, such as all of our technicians of the month. We also have the leader of our the director of our maintenance department, Mr. Michael Rasmussen. The Texas Energy Managers Association named him Resource Manager of the Year for 2021. So this was, congratulations, Mike. This was a state recognition awarded to him for some of the wonderful things he's done with energy within our district. Custodian departments, providing safe and quality learning environments that foster student learning. We keep our buildings spotless. When you walk in and you see that floor shining like glass, our custodian department takes care of that, and that's under the leadership of Director Abel Narvaez. Custodian Awards that we received. Harlem was School of the Year. We had a lead custodian of the year, Bertha Hernandez at Horace Mann. We had Gracie Cervantes, Hispanic Heritage of the Year. She was named that, and she has 41 years with our district, 41 years. Thank you. September 26th through October 2nd was our Custodian Appreciation Week, and the district and the students, faculty, and staff were outstanding. They showed wonderful support for our custodians and appreciation. Our custodians were very touched, as you can see in the top right-hand picture. This takes us to our grounds department, which is also led by Director Abel Narvaez, keeping our campus and facilities outwardly beautiful. We also maintain the campus grass, shrubs, and landscaping. We purchase and keep up with all the white fleet. That's everything except the buses that Rick has in transportation, provide moving services for district staff members, and pest management. We also have recognition of our employees of the year and also our movers, Dean and Joseph, who are known across the district. Everyone loves those guys because they come and move them easily. Our nutrition services department, we have two outstanding employees that, well, they're with Ormark, but they work with our employees, which is Francesca Bland, who is recognized not only throughout our district, state, and nation, but Baytown Sun has named her one of the top 40 under 40 in Baytown. Food Manager Magazine National has entered several of her recipes in her Twitter video recipes in their series. Erdmore Corporation has deemed her as one of the K-12 rising stars across the nation. And we also have our registered dietitian, Jose Sain. He was also named one of the 30 under 30 in Aramark standard, which is across the nation. Now, Aramark, our food service department serves over 8,000 breakfasts per day. Those are free, 8,000 breakfasts a day. 15,000 lunches per day, 850 after-school meals, snacks, and or suppers to students. Not to mention that we work very closely with our city and our community, making sure that those who are hungry get some type of food. Nutrition services also, we work with our students. We hire them in the summer in intern programs. We hire them sometime after graduation straight into our cafeterias or to be part of us. We also give over $5,000 of scholarship money to our seniors who are planning on going on to higher education. This brings us to our police and security department. Service, integrity, and excellence. Our people make the difference. We work hard to keep GCCISD one of the safest school districts in the state, and that is one of our goals. We work and pride ourselves on doing that and leading and setting the examples, the best practices across the state and the nation. Currently enrolled in the Texas Police Chief Accreditation for Recognition Program. That's the gold standard. Safe and secure schools, keeping GCCISD as one of the safest schools in the district. We do this with a plethora of different ways we do it. Emergency response guides, providing training, our police department with the K-9s and the dispatch center, district-wide Safe and Secure Schools Committee, Rafter systems, alerters, Trinity gunshot detection systems. We work in coordination with Harris County, Baytown, Office of Emergency Management, Homeland Security with Harris County, and other private industries. Like I said, we just wanted to toot the horn to let you all know that not only are we doing wonderful things for our district, our students, and our community, but we're also leading the state and now getting national recognition where people are wanting to come and train and work with us. This May, June, we have a exercise schedule with reunification where we'll have several districts coming to train with us on reunification process. So thank you all for that. And at this time, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Clem.
Thank you, Dr. Price, and congratulations to your department on all their accomplishments. Next item on the agenda is public hearings. Dr. O'Brien.
Yes, we have public hearing A, public hearing on creation of Chevron Phillips Reinvestment Zone Number 1. I'll allow them to come up and introduce themselves. In the meanwhile, those people that were mentioned for the statewide and national awards, will y'all be in the atrium signing autographs after school board this evening? Mr. Walterscheid, Mike, Mr. Rasmussen, are y'all going to be available for autographs? Just checking. We have Mr. Dan Casey, Mr. Kevin O'Hanlon with us presenting tonight on the public hearing on the creation of the Chevron Phillips Reinvestment Zone number 1. I presume that you will continue with the public hearing on the application of Chevron Phillips Chemical Company LP, comptroller application number 1576 for an appraised value limitation on limitation on qualified property pursuant to Chapter 313 of the Texas Property Tax Code.
Thank you, Dr. O'Brien. My name is Kevin O'Hanlon. Dan Casey's to my immediate right. There are 2 public hearings that are on the board agenda tonight. They are related. They're both related to the application of what they call Chevron Phillips Chemical Company. They call it CP Chem, actually, is what I'm used to calling them, for a Chapter 313 agreement. The first item has to do with the reinvestment zone. A reinvestment zone is a requirement of Article 8, Section 1G of the Texas Constitution. Texas Constitution was amended about 30 years ago to authorize the school districts to enter into economic development agreements for possible tax abatements. But as a precondition of that, the constitutional requirement is they have to be in a reinvestment zone. A reinvestment zone is a geographic area defined by a resolution adopted by a local government entity that makes certain findings and authorizes that entity to enter into an economic development agreement. The reinvestment zone in and of itself would be considered enabling. That is that you have to have one, but the creation of one doesn't do anything other than enables an economic development agreement. Under Texas law, this is statute, not the Constitution, specifically under 3.12.0025 of the Texas Tax Code, a school district is authorized to enter into or to create a reinvestment zone specifically for the purpose of entering into a Chapter 313 tax limitation agreement. Now, the counties can also create them, and so can cities. In this case, there was one at one time out there, but it has aged out. They only last for 5 years, and then they have to be recreated. At this point, there is not a current reinvestment zone on the area that's slated for this agreement, so it's necessary to create one. The county hasn't been, at least so far, asked to do that. So the school district has the statutory authority to create a reinvestment zone. In this case, it's defined, the resolution is before you, it's a specific area. The reinvestment zone has no effect on any other taxing entity. Notwithstanding that, we are required by the provisions of the other provisions of Chapter 312 of the tax code to notify all the other taxing entities that serve that geographic area to the fact that we are proposing this, to give them a chance to make any statements, and also we're required to publish a newspaper notice of this public hearing. We've done all those. The requirements have been met. There have been no comments from any other taxing entity or any taxpayer. So we recommend that you consider, as part of the 312 and possibly adopt, the reinvestment zone as enabling the tax limitation agreement under Chapter 313. Are there any questions for that part?
So is that item A, the summary of item A? All right. So at this point, if there's, since this is a public hearing, if we have any questions or comments from the public, now would be the time to do that for item 3A. Hearing none, how about the board? Let's move to 3B.
Okay, item 3B is the other side of the coin. Chevron Phillips Chemical Company has petitioned the district to file an application for a tax limitation agreement under Chapter 313 of the Texas Tax Code. Chapter 313 authorizes school districts to enter into specific agreements to limit the taxes a company pays on a qualifying industrial development. In this case, they're a part of their refinery plant out there that qualifies as manufacturing under the state law. In order to enter into one of those, the school district has to make specific findings to the application. The application is reviewed both by us as your consultants and by the Texas Controller's Office. And based on those, we're going to go through, Dan's going to go through the findings. Part of the application process is that not only you have to approve agreement, but you have to make specific findings. We'll briefly go over those with you, and then we can take questions at any time if you have questions with respect to those. But the findings are all based on what's in their application, have been confirmed both by our offices and by the Texas Controller's Office.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. O'Brien. I'm Dan Casey. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. What you have with regard to the findings, I don't know, Kevin, we're getting background noise or something here. I don't know if that
A little farther
away. Turn yours off. Yeah, that helped. Thanks very much. But this is a project that was brought to you in April. April 5th is submitted to you. It's gone through the controller's review. They issued a certificate July 27th. Which indicated that it met all the state standards and state requirements as far as the issue of the certificate. What you have before you, and this is a relatively small project. When I say small, $218 million is a lot of money, but it's a relative for these kinds of projects. It's a relatively modest project. What they are requesting is for 10 years that you grant a value limitation for M&O taxes for $100 million per year. That's the minimum limitation you can grant. They do go ahead and pay full M&O taxes on that $100 million for those 10 years. The savings is a difference between the project value and the rest. The other feature of this program is that the full project value is taxable for INS taxes for bonded debt. So they're subject to full taxes on that. The other benefits to you from the district side, there is language in there for revenue protection payments of about $1.35 million that goes to the district, and you can negotiate supplemental payments, and these depend on the project size, but we've got almost $3 million of supplemental payments. So out of this, it's about a 50-50 split between the benefits going to the district and to the company for granting this at about $4.3 million for each party. Now, one of the things in the findings, and it goes through all the details as far as the application process, that all this meets the state standards as far as the requirements as eligibility for the project, that it's gone through the various tests that the controllers requires. And basically that's what the findings do, is summarize all of that information, including our recommendations to you on it. The other aspect of this, there's several other agenda items you have on there. Tonight, one of the questions, and this is not unusual, but normally for a non-rural district, if you're a rural district, you normally have a 10-job standard, non-rural district 25 jobs. The company has, given the scale of the project, the company has requested a job waiver down to 10 jobs. Now, this does not let them off the hook as far as requirements, but I think this is, we typically see a lot of job waivers for renewable energy projects simply because they don't have even maybe larger investments not to work here. But the 10 jobs, I think this is what the company had requested, that it has to meet industry standards for a smaller project, and they've contended that. That's gone through the controller's review and is cited in their certificate, so I think it meets the state's requirements as far as meeting those 10 jobs. Now, the 10 jobs, they have to pay, I think it's just slightly above $66,000 a year at a minimum, and they have to offer insurance benefits. So those are good jobs to be had for this project. And then those are the basic elements, and then Kevin can talk about the agreement to it. But you do have that job waiver on, but it's not unusual, and I've seen it more in smaller manufacturing projects around the state in recent years than we had previously. But it's very common for renewable energy projects. Happy with that.
All right. As part of your package, you have the distributed as part of your package, I believe, the agreement itself, which is 33 pages of pure fun. The reason why it is so long to write algebra into English, and that's what this kind of is that this is a fairly complex formula that is stated in English that's essentially required to set out to make sure that the district makes a good deal, quite frankly. In order to do that, what the agreement does is it requires a series of annual calculations that are done over the life of the agreement. In those calculations, we're going to compare two different sets of information. We are going to assume, in the first set, what I would call the base case, we're going to make a determination on the money that the district would have kept, assuming that the project was built and the values are what the values are, as assigned by the appraisal district, and the school finance system is what the school finance system is, given where that is. Remember, under the school finance system, we have current year values, and as your wealth goes up, you get less money from the state. So we make all the calculations on the amount of money. We're going to pretend that you didn't do this agreement, and we're going to see how much money you'd have gotten. That's kind of the best case scenario. And then we're going to do the calculation. We're going to use all the same data. We're going to use your existing tax rates. You're going to use your existing kid counts. We're going to use the current school finance formulas. And the only thing we're going to do between the first set of calculations and the second set of calculations is we're going to use the delta, the difference between the value of the property that it would have been in, that it was, so that's placed on it by the appraisal district, and instead we're going to use the tax limited value. And we're going to make that calculation using all the same elements. So that's going to tell us whether you lost whether having entered into that deal cost you any money. And if it does, the company's got to pay for it. All right? And it does in this case, because there's a provision in current law that is section 48.256D of the Texas Education Code, which provides that when we do these agreements, we make these calculations. We're going to pretend that we got one other thing that we didn't go to current year values. We're going to go to prior year values on those calculations. That's something that the speaker put in personally in the law in 2019 because of Brad's support, because he had a bunch of deals coming off the table on that to take care of them. And it continues to take care of everybody else. The district is going to make, there's a significant revenue consequence of that in the first year of the agreement, about $1.3 million. So that's the major benefit of this. Then the rest of the time you're going to get ADA money. That under Texas law, you cannot get more than $100 per student in average daily attendance. And we're not going to quite get there because there's a 40% cap on this. As a result of these calculations under this agreement over the life of this, we project you'll get $1.3 million worth of payments under the loss. That's a calculated loss, not a real loss. That's really actually mostly extra money to the district. In addition to that, we anticipate you'll receive almost $3 million in payments, supplemental payments on top of that. All outside the school finance system is excess revenues for projects, for things that goes into your general fund. You can use it for any lawful purpose, in addition to the regular school finance program. In addition to that, although the numbers, but we'll be talking about Covestro in a couple of months, which is a much larger project. The values here are $200 million, but $200 million is nothing to sneeze at when it goes under your tax base. So when $200 million goes onto your tax base, everybody pays a little less in terms of their bond payments, because bond payments are scheduled. You raise the amount of money necessary to pay the principal and interest accruing during the following year on the levy, that tax to cover the principal and interest on that. So when you add $200 million, everybody gets a modest but still incremental reduction in their taxes. So even the taxpayers get a break out of this. Kids get something, company gets something, the taxpayers get something on these. And we have been doing this since 2003, and the school districts haven't lost money on this, using this method of calculation, because we calculate that the school district, how you do lose money, and that make the company pay it. It's important to note that the only way you can do this, given the vicissitudes of the Texas school finance system, we don't try and guess what the legislature is going to do. That's a fool's game. So what we try and do is to measure the consequences of the action of approving this on your revenues over the life of the agreement. So that's why it's algebra into English. We're making a calculation about what that metric is, and then the company agrees to pay it. The reason why they don't default on that is even if they did, the consequences is they lose the deal. They got to pay all the back taxes and penalty and interest on those back taxes. So they don't really want to do that. And even if they go into bankruptcy and somebody buys them out, whoever wants to buy them out is going to want this deal too, because this will be levied on theirs. We've been in bankruptcy court. We've been in all these things, and we've never not got paid. So we're comfortable recommending this to you as being in the best interest of this district, its students, and its taxpayers.
Mr. Stampson, you have a question? Go ahead.
This is going back to the 10 jobs. Is that something that's guaranteed with this? How do y'all determine the 10 jobs and who they go to and the whole process?
Well, the 10 jobs, they are required under this agreement, and they are required to have 10 full-time jobs. That's a requirement. They get measured each year. They have to report this information to the state as far as how that goes and what the salaries are paid and the rest. And that $66,000 salary I mentioned is the minimum salary for those jobs. How they're hired, I mean, essentially they're hired by the company. I mean, I think I'm not sure. I don't think there are any restrictions on who they can hire, but they do have to hire them, report the information on the salaries and the rest. They also have insurance requirements for each of those jobs too. Pretty comprehensive insurance program, health insurance program is required as well.
In addition, every company that gets one of these deals is required to file an annual jobs report with the district, which we review for compliance and then forward on to the controller's office for enforcement if that's necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, Howard, on page 100, the letter from CP Kim says that for the size of this project that's proposed, 10 jobs is the industry standard. That's why they have to file for a waiver. State says 25 jobs because of our size as a district.
Yeah, I know that this was, I've been on here about 12 years now, and this came along before about 10 jobs, but they never gave a report about, did they ever hire 10 jobs or,
Well, that's why we hire these guys.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We never knew if 10 jobs were ever filled. That's the question.
Well, let us find the reports are filed. Let us find copies of those for you so you have those in hand. But as far as any existing projects you already have, we do get, as Kevin indicated, we do get annual reports on those. And as far as the wages paid and the rest, and the controller reviews those. I got today a letter from a district that they had gone and reviewed and felt they met the job standards and requirements, so they are subject to annual review.
Okay.
This has in addition to that, and this is why the part of this is the mathematics of how you count jobs. The way jobs are, they have to be new jobs, and they can't be transferred from any place else.
From one.
So one of the things that's a salient feature of this facility, it's an add-on to an existing facility. It is sufficiently a separate operating unit to qualify for treatment as an investment under Chapter 313, but its operation can be done by using existing. Part of the operation of that plant can be done by using existing staff at the plant. So those people, even to the extent, and there will be people in existing staff that are performing functions for this unit, but because those are not new jobs, those won't count. So to a certain extent, this is, if you look at the entire plant, and I think this is why this is an important step, as they keep investing, they're increasing the operational life of the entire facility, so they extend the duration of the entire investment in terms of out there, and it increases the likelihood that they'll be here for a longer period of time. That's what you want, modernizations on these as periodic investments of dollars, because if it all gets obsolete at once, other than the super fund, then there's no reason to keep it going. So it's a good thing for the rest of the jobs that are already out there. Although they don't count, this project provides some assurances that they'll continue.
Okay.
All right, and since this is technically our second public hearing, we once again have to offer the public the time or the ability to make comments or questions. So do we have any? Good answer. And any more questions from the board?
One curious question. This area that we're doing the reinvestment zone, is that in Chambers or Harris County? Or does it straddle the line? I was looking at the map, but I couldn't tell.
I think it's in, I don't know, what's the reinvestment zone resolution?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right. Where's the resolution? I think so. And the resolution said something.
It's west of Cedar Bayou. It's Harris.
Right.
Harris County.
Thank you.
So just a real quick overview. What you're asking the board, what you're proposing in this public hearing is what the board will be presented with as action items later this evening. Action items A through F, which in effect ask the board to expand the reinvestment zone of an existing plant and have a qualifying area of 5 additional acres. Within that, we will approve a contract of 313 agreement that is common or standard in the industry, although every 313 is a new negotiation in and of itself. Then you're asking them to testify that they do not have a personal vested interest in that. Those are the 3 major qualifiers. The other caveat is that there is a waiver within this 313 agreement of the jobs rate.
Separate action on a waiver, and then a separate action on approving the findings of fact.
So in quick summary, that sums up what we've presented here tonight in this hearing.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, and we'll close this public hearing.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Don't go far, though.
Thank you,
'cause
Dan. Thank you, Kevin.
There may be more questions. All right, Ms. Garcia, no one has signed up to speak tonight, so we will skip citizens' participation and move to item 5, approval of minutes, considering the October 18th, 2021 regular board meeting.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Mrs. Guy and a second from Mr. Cotter that we approve the October 18th regular board meeting minutes. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Seeing 7-4 and none against, the motion passes. Now we will move into superintendent reports. Each report will have 3 minutes. Dr. O'Brien?
Okay, well, you've heard me talk about, I don't know, about 3 minutes, but you've heard me talk about our virtual academy, our Goose Creek Virtual Academy that we've been preparing for, as was held up by our legislative process this past summer. We are ready to move forward, and we have some exciting news for you to present to you as actionable as we move into the spring semester. With us this evening, we have Alicia Brooks, principal of the Virtual Academy, as well as Mr. Chapa.
There we go. Hello, everybody. Thank you. I'm so excited about sharing this with you. I don't know. Okay. No, I got it. Sure. So what I'm going to do first is talk about, okay, I'll let you do it, the purpose of the Virtual Academy. And I'm just going to read this one verbatim, but I'm not going to read everything to you. The Goose Creek Virtual Learning Academy exists to provide meaningful and engaging learning outcomes to students who have specific needs that may be better supported through our online learning platform. And that is really our goal and our purpose for our Virtual Academy. So I'm going to take you through kind of a timeline of where we've been, and then after this, I'm going to take you where we're going. It actually started in 2013. The district started looking into a virtual setting for our community, and due to funding and other reasons, it didn't move forward as fast. And now I'm going to fast forward all the way to the spring break that never ended, and forced the entire pretty much world to kind of go virtual and learn some new ways of teaching, and kind of brought some light to everybody's eyes of how virtual learning was actually successful for some students. And some teachers really flourished in that. And then we were, in the spring of 2021, we were accepted into the Virtual and Hybrid School Accelerator Program, one of 50 in the state. Really excited about that. And then as Dr. O'Brien mentioned, House Bill 1468 did not make it all the way through and kind of burst our bubble a little bit. Then come September, I believe it's the second or third time that the Texas legislature met, and then Senate Bill 15 replaced House Bill 1468, and it passed. Yay, so we could actually celebrate now. And then we moved forward to, we were researching and figuring out where we were going to go with the Virtual Academy, and that's where I'm going to take you now. We've decided that we're going to open in January, and we are going to support, to begin with, in our pilot program, kindergarten through 5th grade. So here's our rollout program. So this is really from September to January and where we're at. So starting in September, once we were approved to do this, we started our applications for students to apply. And then in October, we had a committee review all the applicants and go through the qualifications that TEA set forth. And now we are at the point where we're looking at our staffing needs with all the applicants that we've received and who was accepted. And between now and December, hopefully sooner than later, we will have our teachers recruited and hired to teach in our virtual academy. And then come January, we will begin our plan of asynchronous with some synchronous. And I'm going to go into more details for you. So the first thing would like to talk about is what our curriculum is going to look like. And remember, this is just our pilot program. And so we're going to start off using Google Classroom and Seesaw. We figure working with the programs that they're already comfortable with and using and disrupting a little bit from going face-to-face back to virtual, though it's their choice, we want something to be smooth for them. So the Google Classroom and Seesaw will be something they're comfortable with. We're going to use the curriculum that we've already using here currently. And then we have iPads. Thankfully, the technology department was gracious and purchased iPads already for K through 12, so we're not having to worry about purchasing extra technology for them. And then, of course, our standard classroom equipment for our teachers. We are looking into some options for a different LMS moving forward after the pilot program in order to better support
Ding, ding, ding.
teachers.
3 minutes is up. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, I know. It's okay.
Just trying to rattle
He's
your
not the
cage.
timekeeper.
Didn't
He's not the timekeeper. That's Howard.
Okay, so we are looking into purchasing some interactive curriculum to help with our teachers in providing some more support for the asynchronous learning. Learning management system. Thank you for asking. So and that's like your Google Classroom, Canvas, things like that. So we actually had over 200 applicants submit an application. We have 129 with 2 pending. These numbers could fluctuate due to acceptance and if they're still interested in joining us. And then our families were actually notified of this last week. So very exciting stuff.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
So on the applicants, what was the criteria?
I'm going to go over that in just a
Okay,
little bit.
sorry.
No, you're good. So here's what the applicants, this was everybody that applied. This is kind of the breakdown just so you can kind of see where they're coming from. The exciting piece of this is we have 25 students we may be recovering that are no longer in the district that have withdrawn. And we've actually found out some students that are in the campus count have withdrawn since they've applied. So they're coming back. So that's exciting. So here are the qualifications that you were asking. TEA set forth a couple of the qualifications, TEA in the Senate Bill 15. LEA, or Local Education Agency, had to have an overall rating of C or higher, and we are there. Teachers must have professional development related to successful online teaching, and I do believe now the new teachers that are going through the programs actually have to have this part of their program, so that's exciting. And then they also have to be certified in their subject area as normal. And then here are the qualifications. For students, if they were remote last year, they had to achieve a satisfactory achievement or higher on the all-star test, no more than 10% of unexcused absences in the previous year, and they had to have passed all their core areas with the C or higher. Okay. So here's what the breakdown for grade levels so far as our accepted applicants. So, and
Ms.
then
Brooks, just
yes.
before you touch on this, just that last slide.
Yes.
Of note, TEAs, what they're saying by saying this is that online learning may not be easier. It may be more challenging, so you need to be ensure that your foundational skills are in place before you attempt to do a virtual learning opportunity. Thank you.
And that's why they were looking at what if they were remote last year, if they were successful at that last year, then they should be successful this year. And then our breakdown again. And our 2 pending are students that aren't in the district, and we're just waiting some information from them. So that's why they're pending. And then this is a breakdown by campus on the accepted. This is not the one that we originally saw, but these are all the accepted by grade level. Again, the 25 I'm really excited about. So with those numbers, HR and I talked. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm really excited about that. With 9 teachers with the staffing that we looked at with those numbers, and there's the breakdown. I can read it to you. And then any other staff, we've discussed options of using some help from San Jacinto Elementary on any of their staff that could help us with the counseling and items like that. So here's our logistics. We plan on having an asynchronous plan. So asynchronous means they are working at their own pace, own time, where assignments according to TEA has to be turned in by 11:59 to be counted present for the day. And that's kind of similar to what they've been doing the last year and a half. But in order to make that work a little easier and better for the students to be in some kind of routine, we would like to have some synchronous sessions as well. So we're going to actually have it broken down by subject area where as a whole group, they'll meet at a certain time with their teacher, and then they'll have some time where they'll be asynchronous. That asynchronous time will be that time when the students would either be working on their assignments by themselves or be put into a small group or one-on-one with the teacher if they need some extra help. And then this is coming up next is what is an idea. This is just a sample of what this could look like for a student. So, and we would come up with a detailed plan for all the students so they know when their WebEx is, when their small groups are. And a lot of this really needs to be planned out with our staff so we can, once we get to know our students and the teachers understand how it's going to work for them. And then this is what it could potentially, again, look like for a virtual teacher. So in this case, we have Mondays and Fridays, could possibly be a work from home option for them. And then Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, they would be on campus with us and have office hours. So we're not teaching synchronously all day. So they're going to have office hours where that's where they could work on one-on-one, small group, working on their content creation, because it is a little different than, I hate to say this, running worksheets or doing something that you've done in the past. Everything has to go digital and interactive. And so those office hours are for those items as well. Any questions?
Go, Ms. Woods.
Okay, so
Yes.
do we have an enrollment limit, an upper limit?
According to TEA, we can go off of TEA, you cannot have more than 10% of your student population, total district population. We're not close to that.
Gotcha.
I will tell you that TEA does include any other homebound, anything else like that would include on that. But again, we're not close to that.
So that number does include homebound and all those kids already. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's good to know. Mm-hmm. What would the portrait of an online elementary kid look like right now?
A portrait, that's a great question. Actually, we have that posted, and I should have read over it, but we have that posted on the website of what a student, a good virtual student would look like. And it's someone that's self-motivated, someone that can follow a schedule. We also are having, I shouldn't say I'm sorry. We should also have a parent where they're going to be a learning coach or someone that lives with them, or if they go to someone's house where they can be a learning coach. And our goal is to teach those parents, guardians, whomever it is, on how to ask questions, not give answers and not give the question to answer the question, but more of guiding them to the right answers. So I know those are part of the...
Yeah. So following the application, was there an interview process to glean if we have those qualities?
Not at this point. We were going strictly off of TEA's guidance. And I will tell you that our committee did look at their current scores, their current attendance, and their current beginning of the year assessments if we
and as an administrator, how much do you have to concern yourself with the TEA guidelines and statutes as far as 30-minute lunch, 45-minute conference period? Will that be a written schedule as well?
I believe we still have to follow some of those guidelines with the lunch and the conference period. And can you go back one real quick?
Yeah, I know a lot of this is still being ruled on.
Yes, yes. And it's changing
and as soon
daily,
as we develop what we want to do, they'll change it. Yeah, I get that.
They're going to model it after us. That's my goal.
I love it. I love it.
So go back to the teacher one. So one of the things you're asking about, I'm assuming we're going to have, we're having the same conference period and lunch rules as TEA would have for a face-to-face session. So the 7:45 to about 9 o'clock would be almost every day conference period for those teachers. And then I have about a 45-minute lunch broken if we follow this schedule. Right. So I do have that set in there as a sample.
Good. But I haven't read the entire law since they changed it. I kind of got the wind taken out of my sails like you did, and then never really picked back up when it went to the Senate bill. The last question for now is, of the 120, I'm just going to round up, 125 kids that we have approved, will their demographics match Goose Creek's demographics? Or have we even looked at that yet?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I have. I did not include that chart, but I do have a chart that has it.
Just yes is all I need.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Just going to commend Ms. Brooks. Everything comes back to Texas, TEA, and Texas laws and guidelines. But Ms. Brooks has left no stone unturned across our nation, looking at other successful virtual models. And I wanted to commend you publicly for doing that, because in this particular case, there's not a sense in reinventing a wheel that already already exist, and I know you found some states that are very advanced with their virtual learning platforms, and you're bringing a lot of those ideals to us to simplify the process for our parents and for our students and for our teachers. So I wanted to say thank you for that. I'm looking forward to it. As y'all heard, the spring is a pilot year in which we'll make the tweaks and adjustments that we need to for the upcoming year. We do anticipate more grade levels potentially for the 22-23 school year. We don't know how many more. We don't know if it'll be K through 12 or not. We're going to, like I said, use the spring semester to teach us what we can do, what we're capable of. Our goal, obviously, is to serve our entire community. So that's the plan. Thank y'all very much.
Okay, thank you.
Our next presenter is Ms. Dela Cruz. Will be presenting on our discipline protocols. Ms. Dela Cruz works in student services and is a frequent flyer presenting to our principals and assistant principals and district administrators.
Good evening, board members. Can you hear me? Okay. So we're going to discuss this evening the discipline protocols for the campuses, and we'll start first by discussing where does the process start. And it starts when an individual, a parent, guardian reports an incident to an administrator, or the campus administrator or teacher sees a possible infraction. Next, the expectation is that the campus administrator contacts that parent or guardian as soon as they're made aware of the incident. Shortly after, they go ahead and start taking initial statements. The expectation for parents and guardians to be contacted is within a 24-hour window. So as soon as the administrator gets the report of an incident, they pick up the phone, they call the parent, this has been reported. Not that the investigation has been completed, but rather we want to bring to your attention that this is what we witnessed or this is what has been reported to us. The components of the investigation, the campus administrators interview the complainant and the respondent separately, and they obtain written statements. The campus administrator collects the written statements from all witnesses, and once again, the expectation is that they contact the parent and guardian, both of the respondents and the complainants. The campus administrators gather all available evidence, whether that be text messages, social media posts, anything that they view videos a lot of times, anything that is relevant to the incident at hand. Based on the preponderance of evidence, the campus administrator identifies the violation that has occurred and issues the appropriate consequence if needed. Some of the factors to consider prior to the recommendation of the consequence is the intent or lack of intent. Is there a disability? Was the student acting in self-defense? What does the previous discipline history look like? Is the child McKinney-Vento, or what are they currently in foster care status? Campus administrators must take all these things into consideration when making the recommendations on whether or not a consequence is going to be issued. The campus administrator will provide the supportive measures as needed, utilizing our multi-tiered system of support. And the expectation is that supportive measures are provided both to the complainant and the respondent. You've heard me say this before. We're very, very fortunate in Goose Creek CCISD that we have a lot of systems put in place in our multi-tier system of support. If you look under the umbrella, it lists just some of what we offer students in an effort to provide supportive measures. Some other limitations that restrict the type of discipline or consequence that is added to students is that McKinney-Vento students who are homeless or unaccompanied minors cannot be suspended from school. Pre-K through second grade students cannot be suspended from school. Students can only be suspended for 3 consecutive days at a time. Students younger than 6 years of age cannot be sent to the alternative school. A manifestation determination review must be held prior to a change of placement for a 504 or a special education students. And students who are 504 or special ed students cannot be removed from their least restrictive environment for more than 10 days. This includes out-of-school suspension and in-school suspension. The discipline protocols consist of if an incident is in violation of the law, then the expectation is that the campus administrator immediately contact Goose Creek CCISD police. If the incident in question happened outside of school, like on a Saturday or a Sunday in Harris County or north of I-10, GCCISD police will contact those agencies in that area. If the parent disagrees with the consequence that an assistant principal has issued, then they meet with the principal to appeal that concern. If a staffing is needed, the campus administrator will schedule the staffing to address any additional concerns if necessary. And our practice in GCCISD is that we schedule staffings anytime we remove a student from their campus if the child participates in 504 for special education services. Some of the trends that we're seeing that are very concerning is that discipline is on the rise across the nation. Some contributing factors that have been associated with these high risks and spike in discipline is returning face-to-face instruction after approximately 18 months of virtual instruction, social isolation, social media encouraging poor behavior, like all the TikTok challenges that we saw a couple of weeks ago, trauma caused by the pandemic, and poor behavior exhibited by adults. I'm waiting for you to say my 3 minutes are up. I'm like, I think I'm getting... Okay, additional district-wide supportive measures. Some of the things that we do for campus administrators and for students, we have PBIS meetings. They're held monthly for campus administrators to review their data, look at what areas may be concerning, and come up with solutions for their individual campus. Campus discipline is shared with area executive directors for an added layer of support. And then the departments of social emotional learning, 504, and SPED also review individual student discipline for supporting services and programming. So we're looking all at the same data, all at the same student on how we can help provide a successful environment to all of our 23,941 students that were enrolled as of this morning. Do you have any questions?
I've lost an acronym. What's PBIS?
Positive behavior
Thank you.
Sorry.
Had to get me started.
And also PBIS has been around for a long time. You'll hear PBIS go under the umbrella of MTSS because that's just one of the many supportive measures that we offer. And PBIS encourages campus administrators to look at their campus culture, their campus climate, identify problems of concern, and work with the teachers. The teachers are the committee that really are the changing agent and drive those changes.
Just for clarification, the McKinney-Vento was used as an adjective. It's actually a legislative act, the McKinney-Vento Act, that designates homeless, and there's several qualifiers for homeless. You could be living in a hotel and be classified as homeless. You don't have a fixed residence. So
we have homeless, shelter, unaccompanied minor, and students that just may be living in vehicles. And so there's about 4 or 5 identifiers that students or families can report in making them eligible for McKinney-Vento status and getting services as needed, which include pre-K free transportation, and like I said, they're not eligible for suspension because the thought process is they don't have a home where you're going to send them.
Ms. Dela Cruz, I shared with the board and the audience that you present professional develop to many of our administrators. Would you like to share with them what you do on a day-to-day basis other than provide professional development?
Yes.
Just briefly share with them the other parts of your job.
In our department, we oversee enrollment, we oversee attendance, we oversee the 3D AEPs, which are High Point, Point, and JJAEP. We meet with parents to address any concerns. We oversee the Title IX investigations as it pertains to students. We also monitor all data that we report to the state, which is our 425 discipline report, our RDA information, any indicator that may get us into trouble with federal reporting as it pertains to disproportionality. We supervise the PEMS department. We work very closely with our nurses because I directly supervise Nurse Pena. I'm very fortunate in that. And then we have the truancy department that encompasses the foster care program and then our track program, which I believe y'all heard about last month. So we're very, very blessed with a lot of job opportunities in our department. I'll say when I first started, I saw that we had just really good administrators that were APs, and so I asked them to help present. At that time, it was Dr. Times, it was Ms. Holland, and it was Carrie Smith. And as assistant principals, I would ask them to help present, because they were veterans and there were a wealth of knowledge to their assistant principals. With the thought process is you learn more from your peer than just a crazy lady talking to you. And so we have continued with that pattern of behavior, and that this past summer we had an assistant principal from every high school in the feeder pattern present to administrators, especially because we had over about 36 new administrators that were new to GCCISD or just new to their campus. And that was Mr. Chesery from GCM, Ms. Higdon from Sterling, and Mr. Trent from Lee High School. Because we want to make sure that we are growing our own giants and that we give them the opportunity for a professional growth in an effort to keep them here and move them to the next level, wherever that may be, in whatever department that may be. Of course, you're in
And you
GCCISD.
generally are the first line of defense on any grievance. So your goal is to satisfy or quench that problem before it becomes a grievance with the first contact with parents or grandparents or relatives of a child under any circumstance.
Absolutely.
Right. Any questions from the board?
Anybody? Ms. Woods?
I get to go first?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, you're green to go.
Okay, so I had some questions about the discipline measures. Because while this goes over protocols, it's not quite as specific, I guess. When we asked for this report, we were reacting to a parent who spoke in front of us about the whole process that failed her when her child was, had an incident at school. And so, of course, here, if we start off with the process starts when an incident is reported. That's, I think, number one, communication breakdown is if this is something that happens in a classroom, who's responsible for reporting it for it to actually get recognized? Is that the teacher? Is the teacher responsible for communicating with the parent, or does the teacher immediately hand that off to campus administrator? Granted, it was, a 4-year-old pre-K. So do we believe the child or do we not when they are complaining?
Okay. It's the responsibility of the teacher to report any concern to the campus administrator as well as the parent. One of the other things that we do in our department is we host a Behavior 101 and Behavior 102 with all new teachers. And a big part of that is communication with the parents. We take into consideration any concern that a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, or any student brings to our attention. Age is really not a factor in investigation, except when it comes to taking statements. So I'm glad you referenced their age, because one of the things that we work with our campus administrators is when a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old brings a concern to their parent or a teacher, we expect communication to be broad and across the board. I talked about our supportive measures. Our campus administrators provide some of those, but some of those also are on counselors and on teachers.
So how do we hold our campus administrators or our classroom teachers to this, 24 hours, within 24 hours of knowledge of the incident? And this is just one example, but I know we've heard others, in the past where the parent is the last to know, or the parent makes contact and doesn't receive response within, several days, either email or phone call or what have you. It seems there might be a little bit more defined process, and maybe it's in the teacher handbook. I didn't read that. I was looking through the student parent code of conduct. So, I think communication is the big key here. And if there's not a very defined, specific process written out for teachers and staff to follow, what can parents expect except for to call you and grieve?
Well, and the expectation, like I said, is 24 hours. We've had multiple complaints about parents not hearing anything within 24, 48 hours, and that is concerning. So the first thing we do to address that concern is identify the problem. So was it an isolated incident in that a campus administrator went home and realized their 2-year-old or the 3-year-old was sick and they had to stay home the next day? Did the administrator go home and realize that there was a loss in the family and unfortunately they were going to be out of work for a couple of days? Anytime we get a parent complaint or something brought to our concern from Dr. O'Brien or an email from you, is we look at where the breakdown happened. And we work diligently with our campus administrators, our teachers to address whatever caused that failure, and we try to remedy it. And then after that, we have to work really hard to build that relationship back with that parent, because then they become leery and distrusting, and rightfully so, especially if they feel like the campus is not communicating well with them. So we definitely understand that, and we know that when that lapse has happened, it's really hard and important that we build that communication back up with the parent. So the first thing we would do is identify why that breakdown happened. Is it a pattern of behavior from that campus? If we had a campus that we were hearing from parents every day, then I would be absolutely contacting my boss and contacting the area executive director and say, how can we help this campus? How can we help this individual? Like I mentioned a while ago, we have 36 new administrators that are either new to that building or new to their role. And so that requires a lot of support. We've asked them on several occasions on what they feel that they need. But I assure you that every assistant principal and administrator meeting that we have, we focus on communication, whether that's written, email, telephone. The expectation is always that you maintain an open line of communication.
Okay. I also wanted to go down to where you have, based on the preponderance of evidence, campus administrator identifies the violation and issues appropriate consequence if needed. I want to bring the example of dress code. Is that campus specific? I mean, does each principal have their own guideline?
The dress code is pretty clear in the handbook. Now, if we have a child that is going through...
I mean, I'm not talking about McKinney-Vento or SPED or 504. I mean, just in general, it seems like dress code is up to the campus administrators as to how it is enforced or not enforced. It seems that it's not uniform across the district.
Okay.
It's a minor thing in relation to other things, but it's also a discipline tone setter for a campus.
It's supposed to be uniform across the district.
Correct.
That's what the student handbook says.
And we voted on that before you came.
But I received many mentions and comments and calls and emails about it not being enforced at all levels. At all levels. You know, junior high school campuses, high school campuses, that basically it's up to whoever's watching on duty at the time that the dress code is either enforced or it's not.
I would encourage those parents, if they have that relationship with the campus administrators, to reach out to them and express their concerns, or that's something that they could bring to our office and we could address it accordingly. Now, you asked based on the preponderance of evidence. That's usually an investigation that they're going to recommend a consequence on. That is a legal term. Anytime that we have spoken to our attorneys, any conference that we've ever attended, stresses the preponderance of evidence is what we have to make our recommendations on.
Yeah, I think that our dress code is very relaxed as a district, and so violations of it are not done out of need. They're done out of spite or for other reasons. TikTok challenges, which lead to vandalism, which lead to slapping your teacher, or whatever else is the TikTok of the day. And I think if we don't enforce the codes we have, then how do we enforce, discipline issues that arise that we did not anticipate?
And I welcome the opportunity to address those, but without having a specific campus or additional information, it would be hard for me to come up with a solution. So I encourage the parent to reach out to the campus administrator or the office so we can work collaboratively in addressing those concerns.
But in simple terms, if we have a failure to enforce, then we just have human error. It's just a human error in judgment if they're failing to enforce what we, like you said, like we have on the books already. If we're not enforcing it, we're just failing to do our job. Bottom line. Yeah.
I think that's all I have.
And if I could jump on the bandwagon here, see what I did there?
Do it.
Is there, or what is our consistency piece in the professional development with APs and administrators to make sure these protocols are followed and the same consequences are issued from office to office and campus to campus? And where is the autonomy line on dress code from campus to campus?
Okay. So I want to make sure I understand your question. You want to make sure you're asking about the consistency as it applies to the dress code from campus to campus.
Or any discipline.
I think all disciplining.
All discipline.
I think he may be referencing Chapter 37 versus our code of conduct.
If we go through all of your presentation, the protocols that we're supposed to follow, right down to the preponderance of evidence and the consequence issued, how do we get a consistent result from campus to campus, and even within those campuses, from grade level office to grade level office?
And I think that this slide is going to demonstrate that each campus administrator has to consistently consider these factors when issuing a consequence, regardless if it's for a dress code, regardless if it's for whatever offense they may have violated, that they consistently, as required by the Texas Education Code, Chapter 37, that they must adhere to looking into each of these factors before issuing a consequence. So if you have a student that commits the same offense, two exact things being equal, let's say you and Dr. O'Brien commit the same offense.
That's highly possible.
And I may have been together while you were committing it. The concern is going to be one of you may be homeless.
I don't think we're asking for exceptions right now.
Okay.
I'm going to just get down in the weeds with you. Some of us sitting here are tired of getting the phone calls and the emails that my kid got 3 days of ISS and her kid only got 2 for the exact same thing. And we all know that there are mitigating circumstances between the two. But we hear that time and time and time and time again. So what I'm asking you is, it seems, and Dr. O'Brien put this on you as being the professional development piece, do you have that consistency piece in your presentations to the APs?
Yes, sir, and I'll tell you, we do that by looking at our data, which I discussed previously. If we see that we have several students that commit the same offense and no one's on the same page on what consequence they're getting or what discipline is being issued, then we address it. What we also did during our staff development that was presented by our assistant principals is they all got a rubric that would help the new administrators, especially for those that had never been APs before, and say, okay, well, this is what the infraction was. I have this plethora of consequences.
Good.
Well, each assistant principal brought to the table of this is what our campus is looking at, this is what we want to do, and they created a rubric for all administrators and shared that during that staff development.
Good, and we're all encouraged to use that.
Yes, sir.
Good. And in your next presentation to APs about discipline, you're going to reference tonight's conference or conversation.
Yes, sir, I am. And I'll tell you, actually, when I met with them last month, I shared that with them. Why don't we hear?
And it's their job to make sure we don't get those phone calls, and they probably need to hear that, because that's really not our job. Because I send them straight to you, and I'm sure most of the board does.
Yes, sir, they do. But I did mention to them last time that we met that we would be here, and I mentioned to them that discipline was something that can be very time-consuming, but the expectation was that that communication piece be there, that they were consistent and thorough and professional in communicating, not only with their staff, but with the parents as well. So they knew about this presentation. I'm meeting with them again on Thursday, and I will be definitely sharing our discussion.
And the positive of that is we only hear the bad. We as a board rarely, if ever, hear, hey, my kid got in trouble and they did it right. We never get to hear that piece. And we know that happens most of the time.
Well, just to summarize, that's the point I wanted to get to. Most administrators have proven themselves to be successful classroom teachers. So they've mastered the concept of classroom management. So it is that trust that we place in them being an administrator to make good judgments. But what you're asking as a board is that we do it with fidelity and consistently across the district. I think that's a reasonable request to ensure that that's a part of our training with our administrators. Just for the board's assurance, when you have a grievance that goes to us and we're not able to solve it in grievance level 1 or 2, it comes to you and say it's not solved at your level, it goes to a court of law. It could. At a court of law, what a judge or a jury of their peers would ask is this: were the actions of the administrator those of a reasonable human being? So that's the true test. So you're asking, how can we be precise? How can we be exact? The exact science in a court of law is what's reasonable. I mean, so it is hard to put on it. The 24-hour rule is the rule we put on ourselves. That's not in TEA. That's not in code. It's what we place upon ourselves as we think is reasonable to get with a family about an incident that happened with their child within that 24 hours. I think the window is missed occasionally. I don't think it's missed a majority of the time, but I think it is missed occasionally. And I think that's, once again, I'm going to refer back to just failure, error, human error. And we need to get more consistent on that. And I think that that message can be resonated throughout our professional development. Ms. Dela Garza.
I've got a question. I noticed on slide 39, or not our page 39, I don't know what slide you're on, where it says if the incident in question is a violation of the law, then the administrator contacts Goose Creek CISD police. At what point does the administrator involve the police?
Anytime they feel that a law has been broken. Anything violent, if there's a theft.
I'm not asking for the incident types, but at what point in that process?
Almost immediately.
Immediately?
Yes, sir. Almost immediately. Yes, sir. As soon as they come across a student who may have any kind of drugs on them, that is almost instantaneously.
See, a student says somebody has sexually assaulted me.
Immediately.
Do they begin asking questions first, or do they immediately involve police?
It's kind of one of the beauties that they have to do is multitask. That would be a Title IX investigation. And so immediately they would bring the student in, radio the officer, and say, we have a student that you may want. Because what we don't want is the student to have to repeat themselves over and over with something as sensitive as that. Yes, sir. So that communication is almost instant.
Cool. Okay.
So I know that's a Title IX situation, but on Title IX, do you have anyone on staff that deals with that before you send it to the policeman to investigate that situation, as well as Title IX with administrators, teachers, and everything that complain about someone doing something to them or making reference to them sexually, whatever? Do we have someone that deals with those Title IX issues? And if they complain to your office, do we have someone specific that deals with Title IX issues?
So our office oversees the investigation. About 2 years ago, Title IX process changed in that now you have to have what's called a decision maker, an investigator, someone to provide the supportive measures. It's about 5 or 6 individuals that have very distinctive roles in the area of Title IX. So because of the sensitive nature of it, Campus APs call our office immediately, as well as law enforcement, and those investigations happen simultaneously. Because one of the things they're going to ask is, if I was sexually assaulted, where were you sexually assaulted? A lot of times that may happen on the weekend, which goes to, they'd pick up the phone and call Baytown PD or Chambers County or wherever the incident was. But if the allegation is that it happened on campus, then the campus administrator is the investigator. And they gather as much of the information as possible. So they've received training on what that looks like step by step by step, because when the law changed, there's a lot more communication that's required. So now we have to notify both the respondent and the complainant, and we have to identify them by name. And so if I said, somebody did something to me, Bob
Right.
Smith did something to me, the complainant and respondent would know each other's name, the alleged incident, right down to the date and time, and they would have to get it from us in writing. So the campus administrators works with our office. We did purchase the Walsh Gallegos documentation for Title IX. So we have standard templates that we use to provide to the parents of both the complainant and the respondent.
So that would be something also the staff could do for us if say a teacher saying that another teacher made sexual comments to them and they want to file a complaint against them, do they come to your office?
No, sir. If it comes to our office, and I would work with our human resource director,
Right.
depending if it was elementary or secondary, and we would work collaboratively on that. We've created a Teams folder in Microsoft Teams to share the forms, and so each one of us will be very clear on what our role is in each investigation, because there's very clearly defined roles in any investigation that has to be met.
But if it does transfer from, I think his reference was from child to adults, it would go to human resources.
We'd work together on
services.
it. So human resource would take care of the staff, and we would provide supportive measures to the student.
But what if it's a staff person doing or making a sexual remark to a child?
Right. So our office would report that to law enforcement and work with the campus administrator
Right.
to investigate. But we would work with human resource because a staff member is involved. And almost immediately, when any allegation like that is brought forward, I immediately contact Mr. Chapa, Dr. Sylvester, or Dr. Wyatt. And we work on that together.
And the new law also requires the campus principal, whether they're involved with the investigation or not, once they become aware of it, to notify the superintendent of schools.
But who investigates?
The campus administrator.
It's one person that investigates, that you have. In other words, if it's done at Horace Mann, do you have someone on your staff that takes that incident and investigate it without having all of these different people investigating that situation? If it's at Sterling, if it's at Lee or whatever, do you have a unit of a person that investigates this claim of sexual harassment or bullying or whatever it may be? But I know that under Title IX, it's mostly sexual. But do you have someone in your staff? I'm just,
It's actually Mr. Chapa's
I was
staff.
going to ask the same thing. But
very good question. We have staff at each campus that's designated as a Title IX coordinator.
Okay.
If it's an elementary campus, then either the principal or assistant principal is that designated Title IX person. Then they work together with our human resources director for elementary campuses, and that's Dr. Ron Wyatt, to work collaboratively with that. And they try and resolve the issue there. If the issue cannot be resolved within them, it comes to me as the Title IX coordinator for the district.
Okay.
And at the secondary campuses, we have the same thing, a designated person, but at the secondary level, it's Dr. Sylvester.
Okay. But if it's not handled there, it'll come to you again?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's what I was curious about, because I heard her say Title IX.
Each campus has a Title IX coordinator. And then if it's a child, a student, they go through student services.
But if
it's an adult, then it comes through human resources.
So it goes directly to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And all of our administrators go through the Title IX training through our beginning of the year, the different modules that they have to do. All of them do that as well.
But they not doing, in other words, they go at the end of the year, but during the year, Mr. Chopper and your staff are the ones that handle the Title IX.
Yes, sir.
So y'all are more fluent with the Title IX than training at the end of the year.
Yes, sir. When the Title IX laws were updated, it specifically said that we had to have someone that was going to be designated as the decision maker, and that filed on me.
And so you investigate and do everything from that standpoint?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just was curious.
Rather than notify Ms. Dela Cruz that her 3 minutes is up, I'll ask Dr. Price, did she win the trophy tonight?
No, she didn't.
The board gave me direction to bring it to someone else.
It's supposed to go to Mr. Bollinger.
Well, speaking of Mr. Bollinger, our next presenter.
Are we done with questions?
Thank you, Ms. Dela Cruz.
Are you through board with Ms. Dela
Thank you
Cruz?
very much.
I was gonna ask a question. Can you explain the policy on parental support when there's an incident and they're at a campus? Like specifically, who can that parent bring in? Can they bring somebody in? Just address that across, because it should be across the board. It's already been clarified, but who can they bring as support? Like say I have an incident with my child, I go in to meet with the principal or the assistant principal. Who can I bring in with me?
The practice is that we only meet with parent or guardian because of any further concerns.
But what's the policy? Because you said practice. But
What's the
policy?
We do not have anything in board policy or administrative guidelines, with the exception of FNG for a grievance. If there's prior notice given, then yes, they can bring an advocate. Sometimes they'll bring an attorney. We do not meet with an attorney by ourselves without our attorney being present. Often we'll have parents that want to bring in cousins or aunts or uncles.
Or friends.
Or friends.
Right.
And if the campus administrator, whether that be the AP, assistant principal, or counselor, is not comfortable because of the nature of the incident or because there's been some inappropriate dialogue or concerns, then the campus administrator, counselor, or AP, principal, SSA does have the option of saying, let me table this. I really want to address your concerns, but let me table it until I have my AED present. Let me table this until I have maybe somebody from student services present. And we extend that same courtesy to parents. I'll give you an example. I had a family from Lee High School who was not very pleased with their campus administrator, and they asked me to be present, the mom and dad, and said absolutely. So we met with the campus administrators at 7 o'clock. They asked me to be there because they felt that they had some concerns that weren't being addressed, and I met with them because they asked me to. So we provide that support to whether it be the parent or the counselor, assistant principal, or principal.
Okay. The reason I asked was because this lady that came and addressed us the other day said that she tried to bring somebody with her for support and that it was not allowed. And I didn't hear you address it on all this stuff. So.
And I think that was a miscommunication because I don't think it wasn't allowed. I think that individual was given the option of tabling the meeting or meeting with the principal by themselves. So I think that's what was communicated to that individual, as we would to any parent. I'll tell you that in the past meeting with friends or family members, if they get sideways for whatever reason, they're in there and they've heard all the information about your child.
I got you.
And so it's practice that we meet with the parent and guardian.
All right, and there's two sides to every story.
Absolutely.
And then somewhere in the middle you find the truth, but according to what she said, she wasn't offered that opportunity.
I'll tell you that I think the following week, representative from Student Services, the area executive director, the principal, there was two individuals that were there that met. And so that meeting was held. So they're always given the option, let's table it. If not, then parent and guardian, let's meet by ourselves.
Okay. I just wanted to address that publicly.
Well, I appreciate that opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Renteria.
No problem. Thank you.
Y'all have a blessed night.
Ms. Leith, Mr. Bollinger, Dr. Bollinger, I'm sorry, overview of the rezoning process.
All right, good evening. This is presentation number 3. We have a very brief overview. I'm here with Christy Leith and myself.
That's what you think.
I'm kind of scared.
To talk about the rezoning process for Pumphrey Elementary, and so that's what our focus is. We want to go over the purpose and objectives, the process that we typically go through anytime we rezone for a campus, and also the timeline for this specific rezoning. So in general, whenever we rezone a campus, we do it for several reasons. We want to make sure that when we redraw the attendance boundaries, that it's done in an efficient manner, also in an effective manner. It's exciting that we have growth in our community and growth in our district, so we're excited about that. In particular, we have significant growth north of I-10, and so that is, of course, why we are building Pumphrey Elementary in that area. And so as we go through the rezoning process, we also want to make sure that we get community input throughout the process, and that we pay attention just to the traffic patterns, to the routes, make sure that it's a zone that makes sense, that the student's house is in close proximity to the school when that's possible. So I think the most important bullet on this slide is that we want to make sure that we keep in mind the best interest of the student whenever we do the rezoning process. So for Pumphrey, we are rezoning, which will be effective next year, 22-23. That's when Pumphrey Elementary will open. The focus is to make sure that we align the numbers of students based off of capacity, and we know that whenever we adjust Pumphrey's numbers and we add students to Pumphrey, that will also impact other elementaries, usually the ones that are close to the new school. And so we consider those as well. Also, there will be a grandfathering process similar to EF Green last year, where the committee that's working on this will develop a grandfathering process for certain students. So overview of the process. So we're going to follow a very similar process that we followed last year with EF Green. We work with our consultant demographer, PASA. Stacy Tapera is usually the point person for us. We did a demographic study last year for EF Green, and so for this year, she's just providing an update for us, and since it's not too far away, too much time hasn't passed. And so we'll get an update from PASA, and then we have a district rezoning task force that will work to go over the data, look at the enrollment numbers, look at the updates, and then PASA will usually provide several starter options for rezoning. So she'll give us 4 or 5 zoning options. The district task force committee will go through those options. We'll have dialogue. We usually meet 3 or 4 times. Christy will go through the timeline here in a little bit. And based off of those conversations, then we start making decisions on and recommendations on which zoning options are the best for that particular school. Christy's going to walk us through the next part of the process.
Okay, so once the task force comes up with 2 rezoning options, then what we'll do is get feedback from the public. One in the form of an online survey, and then the other will be for those that prefer to meet one-on-one or in person, we'll have a public forum. Once that input, that we gather it through those 2 forms, then that task force analyzes it and then tweaks it based on that feedback. And then we'll bring a final report and recommendation to you. The timeline that we're going to follow looks like this. Tonight, obviously, is the board presentation. Our meetings will occur as a task force in November through very early in December. From December 3rd through 9th, we'll start preparing documents for the public, in particular the online survey, which will then be posted December 10th. And the public will be able to provide feedback all the way up through January 14th. On January 13th, we'll have our public forum. From the 15th through the 27th, that's when we will take the information from the public forum, from the online survey. The task force will meet on the 20th, and if needed, on the 21st. And we will finalize those recommendations. We'll also prepare parent and student rezoning letters. And then we'll meet with you and provide you with that recommendation. And if you approve it, depending on what you approve, we have different sets of letters based on that rezoning process. So those letters will be sent out February 8th based on your approval. and then we'll collect the grandfathering request from the 9th through the 25th. And that's it. Was that less than 3 minutes?
Y'all weren't kidding. That was quick.
Oh, no. Thank you.
I'm sorry, excellent.
I have no questions.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
You get the miniature trophy for speed. And tonight, to conclude our superintendent's reports, we have the annual personnel report with the entire HR team. Come on down.
I feel like I've been here before. Well, good evening once again. Mr. President, Dr. O'Brien, and members of the board, HR is here tonight to review our annual personnel report. As most of you are aware, tonight's presentation is data that has been taken from October 1st of 2020, and it goes all the way through September 30th of this last year, 2021, of the current year. With me tonight is Dr. Sylvester, Ms. Steele, and Dr. Wyatt. And I'm going to start off with the first slide. If you look at the first slide, this is our professional employees. You will see that the pie chart on the left is all of our current employees. It shows each of the pie charts will show you the number of employees and the percentage ethnically. And then the pie chart on the right is our new hires, the employees that we hired during this time period. And you can see that we have experienced some growth in our minority population for professionals. Here we have our teachers, and again, the same format. Current teachers, pie chart is on the left, broken down ethnically and by percentage. And then our new hires that we hired this last year. And you can see all of those percentages and the number of employees that we have hired. The next chart, pie chart, is our paraprofessionals. Same format, all of our paraprofessionals in the district. And then our new hires. And tell me if I'm going too fast. Auxiliary staff, again on the left, all current employees. And then the new hires that we had during this time period. And I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Sylvester.
All right. Greetings to all. This first slide looks at the new hires by certification and licensure. When you look at what it says standard, just for informational purposes, a standard it represents those educators who are fully credentialed, and so they have all their credentials in place. When you look at probationary intern, those credentials are associated with our ACP interns. So when we bring people in who are ACP interns, they're either on an intern certificate or a probationary certificate, depending on their certification status or their testing status at that particular time. Also, when you see out of state, in the state of Texas, it allows for those individuals who are credentialed through another state to be able to come and work within the state for a year. And when they do a review, while they're doing a review of credentials, the state will issue them a Texas one-year certificate. And while they're doing that assessment, they'll let them know what testing they need to do based on their state's standards. And so that person will have a Texas 1 year, and the state during that year will let them know what testing requirements they're going to need to be a fully credentialed individual in the state. Here's a graph that shows new hires by highest degree earned. For the first time in a few years, we don't have anyone on here who doesn't have no degree. Sometimes we'll have like one person with no degree because of the CTE. Because you can be a CTE teacher without a degree. There is a pathway for that. But this year we don't have either one of those individuals. But I think we have more doctoral degreed individuals this year. So that's a good thing. Looking at new hires by years of experience, you'll see that 47% of our individuals are 0-year teachers. And then I think we had an increase in our 1 to 3 year individuals as well. And I know Dr. White is going to look at some longitudinal data in just a few minutes. But as we kind of have a discussion about this, this is always a discussion item as it relates to our 0-year teachers. Because of particular interest, we want to make sure that we're getting the best and brightest individuals to the organization. And there's always circumstances surrounding those numbers, and we'll certainly be glad to discuss those as well. This shows new hires by campus level. That 1% is going to be representative of if you hired a person that's SPED or they're actually attached to the SPED org and not really attached to a school, a campus organization. And this is just a breakdown of your ACP hires by campus level. All right, this time we'll turn tenure and experience over to Ms. Steele.
Good evening. This slide represents the staff that we have in the district that have been with Goose Creek between 0 and 31 plus years. And a little bit under 50% of the staff has been with us for 6 or more years. The next slide focuses just on our teachers, and it really mirrors our whole staff as a whole, where we have a little bit under 50% of our staff that is staying with us for 6 or more years.
Okay, and I'm just going to talk to you briefly about kind of our trends over time. Looking at the demographics of all of our employees over the last, we now have 5 years of data. We have seen what I think are some encouraging steps as we've been trying to diversify our staff to make it more representative of our student population. If you just take a look at our professional staff, we have actually increased our number of professional staff over these 5 years by 35. 26 of those positions are held by minorities. With our teaching staff, we have increased 108 teachers, but we have 133 more minority teachers than we did before. We see similar trends in our paraprofessional and our auxiliary staff. So we are making good steps in increasing the diversity of our workforce. Looking at longitudinally at our employee tenure in Goose Creek CISD, it does look, if you look at our 0-year employees, that is a big jump from previous years. That is kind of a big jump from previous years, but we also have to remember that we did just open an entire new junior high, as well as we started the early learning academy program, which brought in quite a few more people. And so we did have an increase in just people coming in, which kind of made a little jump there in our 0-year people. Looking down at the bottom, that's the same data, but focusing only on our teachers, so we can just kind of see how long they have been with us and how that has those trends have gone over the last several years. Oh, I hit it.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, you gave me the button, so I...
Am I on the right slide?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Looking at our just the demographics of our new hires over time, you can see how that has changed over the last several years. Just every year, the exact demographics of people we've hired into each area, our professionals, our teachers, and such. The final slide I wanted to show you is just the longitudinal qualifications of the new hires, so you can see how we have trended over the last several years. One thing I do want to point out, and this is an area that we need to improve in, is that for several years we were doing great at trying to hire more experienced teachers, and then something happened between 2019 and 2020 that caused a lot of people not to want to change districts, and so we have ended up hiring a lot more brand new teachers the last 2 years. It is our hope that as things become a little more stable, we'll see our ability to hire more experienced teachers increase, and so we'll see our 0-year teacher number drop some. Again, the new hire by level, you can see that it's been pretty consistent. We did have a jump up in our number of new hires in our junior schools last year with opening EF Green. And our ACP numbers have also remained pretty steady over the last several years.
Be happy to address any questions or concerns that you may have.
Well, I just wanted to point out that what Dr. Wyatt just said was we have a trend of hiring more teachers with less experience over the last couple of years, and it may be pandemic related where people hunker down and stay where they're at. But I think Ms. Steele's position was created specifically to address that. If you want to just touch on that a little bit, your job duties and descriptions for new teachers.
Talk a little bit about Grow Your Own.
Yes, sir. So I was the brainchild of these three men to really focus on our first-year teachers and to provide that extra layer of support. And so part of my responsibilities is overseeing the mentor program. I work with mentors in the district to make sure that they're trained and they understand the needs of new teachers. And then we added a layer of support that every campus has a lead mentor, and they provide professional development once a month over classroom management to make sure that first-year teachers become experts throughout that first year in classroom management. The other thing that we were fortunate enough to be awarded the Grow Your Own grant about 2 years ago, and we are in year 2 of that grant, and I'm proud to say that 2 more of those participants are coming to the board, I believe tonight, right? Tonight or maybe in December, where they are now fully certified teachers that have been in the district with us as paras or as long-term substitutes. And we also were awarded the T-Class grant to continue this work, and we'll be recruiting 6 more paraprofessionals / long-term substitutes who have been dedicated to Goose Creek to help them become teachers. Each of them will get awarded up to $18,000 in grant funds to finish school and hopefully stay with the district for many years to come.
Lisa has also worked to increase our partnerships with universities, and she's almost doubled our number of student teachers that we have, and our principals are wonderful about hiring those people before they ever get a chance to go apply somewhere.
Yeah, this last semester we had 16 interns here in the district. And so that's 16 that if we have vacant positions, that we're encouraging our principals to go ahead and snatch them up, because then that's one fully certified person that can be assigned to their campus.
I have a quick question. Ms. Sills, you and I had kind of discussed this before in your recruiting so that we can reflect the demographics of our students. And in doing that, are we anticipating looking at additional help for Ms. Sills in the recruiting? Not saying that she came to me asking for that. I'm just saying, we had a long talk and I was able to hear, because my question was, how are we going to get the demographics of our staff to look like our students? So we're looking at that as future growth, especially when we're looking at recruiting especially looking at minority students and going to those historical Black universities and really recruiting and putting some time and effort into that.
You're absolutely correct. You're hitting the nail right on the head, and that's one of our goals, and our principals understand that. So when we go to job fairs, and these 3 individuals go, like tomorrow, we'll have 2 or 3 people, 2 of the 3 will be gone to various universities to go and recruit. They're very good about using social media, and if they see a candidate that's very qualified, contacting that principal, so those principals are aware that when they're gone that they may get a phone call and they'll FaceTime somebody and say, hey, I've got this candidate here, ask them a few questions, that can we offer them a letter of intent to see if we can get them on board, that type of thing. But again, going back to your question, it's very important for us. It's one of our priorities that when we go out there and recruit, that we find candidates that will be a reflection of our student population to serve as role models for our students.
And that's been a challenge the last couple of years with COVID and the virtual platform, because in the virtual platform, we're waiting on them to come to us in the virtual platform. You don't really have a way of going out and getting them, and so we're very fortunate. We're glad that we're getting back to in-person job fairs, because I know we really get out there and we pull people to the side. I mean, the number of people that we've gotten to this organization they just pass the table and we pull them over. And now I know one is at Gentry. I know, so, and that's what we do. We pull people to the side when we see good candidates that reflect our demographic. We begin to have that dialogue with them to tell them about Goose Creek, because one of the things that we've learned over the years is that many people don't associate Baytown with Goose Creek. where's Goose Creek? It's like the video says.
Yeah.
Where's Goose Creek? Because we don't wear our city's name, and so that's part of the dialogue that we get to have. Is we're Baytown, and this is what we offer here, within our school organization. And it's we have a great product. We have a great product, and when we're able to verbalize and have that dialogue with individuals, they come to see, and when they come to see, they come to stay. And so that's part of our success. But the virtual platform has been a little challenging.
I do want to say that I want to recognize our communications department, because anytime we've come up with an idea, a suggestion, a recommendation on putting up a billboard somewhere or having a handout, when you go to a person-to-person job fair, it's easy to stop a student and hand them something. It's something that tells them about Goose Creek, and it tells them about a stipend that we're offering, tells them about all the accolades that we have here.
Does it tell them what we're growing here?
And we tell them that we're growing giants. But no, Matt and his team, Kendall, everyone, we approach them. Lisa will bug them and say, hey, this is what we need. We need a flyer. We need this. And like within days, Kendall is back over here meeting with us and saying, does this work? Will this work? So it's a great team effort.
And they're actually able to target audiences, and demographics, the valley, and so we're able to kind of have that target even before we get there, so that the name is already there. It perceives it before we even get there. So it's been a great partnership with our communications team.
Absolutely.
And I will say, like, our biggest advocate is really our staff. Our staff refers people to our district constantly, and they talk about the great experiences that they have, and they share the wonderful support that's provided, and we get people just coming to us without us necessarily meeting them because they've been referred to by a district staff member.
And I don't know if this is the appropriate platform to say this, but one of the great things that we're able to say when we meet with these individuals is that we have a supportive board. And we start talking about the things.
It's always appropriate.
It's always, because when we start talking about the clinic and the health services and the things that you all do for our employees, we're able to go verbalize that and share the support that our organization gives a first-year teacher or a tenured teacher that you're not going to get from any organization in this area. And so because of what you all do and the support you all give, we're able to go out there and really be a champion for this organization because of the work that you all have done. So it makes it easy.
If I could piggyback on her question concerning the demographics, the data you've presented us tonight is new hires and current employees. If we took that down a level to those interviewed, would there be a discrepancy in the demographics from what we've hired? And I'm not going to take it down a second level because I know a lot of applications go in the round file before we bring them in for interviews. But is there any level that we're getting representation of Goose Creek demographics in our applicant pool? And have we even looked at that?
I can speak to that just briefly. Is that when I first got here 10 years ago, there was a lesser turnout of minorities in administrative roles in the district.
Yes.
There were minority in teaching roles and other roles, but not administratively. And today, every interview we have is balanced.
Could we say we're making it a more comfortable place to apply?
Absolutely.
And maybe look at the interview pool and see if it matched what we hired. Because it would just, if we can honestly say we're not getting the applications that match our demographics, then that's a problem we need to address. If we're getting that as an applicant pool, but then we're not hiring it, then that's a different problem we need to solve.
That's a very good point, Mr. Clem. One of the things that we have done over the last few years is that we have made the hiring process a little bit more uniform. So we don't have just a principal or a director conducting all of their own interviews.
Right.
We have diverse committees, and sometimes we go through a first round and a second round, and we're sensitive to make sure that we're culturally diverse in our interview pool and also through our interview committees.
So we brought that practice out of just administration down into campus and even teaching level.
Yes, sir.
I love that.
And we work very hard to have at least one tall person on each committee.
Okay, it's time
Just kidding.
I only heard about half of what you guys said tonight because I was completely distracted by the tie. And that's all I'm going to say about it.
I'd like to make a comment. This is probably going to throw some people for a loop, but, I'm okay with the district reflecting whatever y'all wanted to reflect, but my main concern is bringing quality people here. It doesn't matter to me if your skin is brown or white or black. I want quality people. We want people that will teach our kids, give them the best quality education that we have. And, the last superintendent we had, we brought him here like that, from my understanding. And look how that turned out. So my whole point is, let's bring some quality individuals in here, not just because we want to look like we have Hispanics in Baytown or blacks, in McNair. No, bring quality individuals here, and let's give our kids the best education that we can give them. Because I know that I've been taught by good quality educators, administrators that were not of my race, and I didn't have a problem with that. And I just think that, look at all aspects of who we hire, because I've seen some, times are changing, people are changing, and Baytown is Baytown. And we've never had a problem with giving good quality educations to individuals, and just want to keep it that way. Thank you. Y'all doing a great job, by the way, except for that Pittsburgh tie you got on there.
It's game night.
I got you.
It's game night.
Go Bears. How about that?
And I think we're up 7.
Thank you for that comment. I think you reflect what we all think. Anyone else? Mr. Sampson?
I do look at the diversity of hiring, students, the administration, everything. And I think that we're heading in the right direction, but we got to make sure that we don't forget that diversity is the important factor for our district. And people to, like someone was saying earlier, that people don't recognize us because, we don't have Baytown in front of, but if you keep doing the diversity of your hiring, people will start spreading the word saying, hey, Goose Creek, they real diverse. Because I've heard some worse things about Goose Creek, about hiring, about promotion, and things of that nature. But I think we're on the right step now, we in a tango now, so we got to keep it going. So I appreciate everything y'all doing, and let's keep up the work that you're doing and being diverse.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate you. Great presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No trophy for you.
Nope, still Mr. Bollinger. All right, we're moving to agenda item number 7, action items. And as a point of order, I would like to move item E to the top, consider conflict of interest acknowledgement, because that definitely is mentioned in item B in the resolution, and it probably affects all the other items concerning the Chevron project. So if there's no objection, we'll consider item E first.
Concurs. You should take that one first.
Okay.
I think the paper is in the resolution.
Yes.
It's in item B. It's like down at the very bottom in one of the attachments.
Yes.
But it said that we did it during public hearing.
Well, you didn't tell me that until after public hearing was over. So at least we caught it. At least we caught it before we voted on anything. So
yeah, we'll go down past page 100 somewhere.
For those of you without an agenda, we're considering the board's conflict of interest concerning the Chevron agreement that we're considering tonight. So normally we have a paper to sign and we go down the row and...
I think it's in action item P, the resolution down at the very bottom.
Can you find it?
I'm
'Cause
looking. I was
I'm not
hoping
finding.
maybe knew.
Yeah, I'm looking hard too, but I'm not there yet.
There it is.
What page?
7E.
Yeah, but it's
also...
but there's nothing under there because there's no action because we already did it.
That's just a
I think it'd be
placeholder.
appropriate for the board president to call roll, asking.
Is it on 7E?
Where's my attorney? Would you guide us through getting through conflict of interest statement so we don't do anything else wrong tonight?
Yes. Under Texas law and in accordance with controller's rules, with respect to conflicts of interest, it is a conflict of interest. We're talking specifically about ConocoPhillips Chevron Phillips Chemical Company.
I know how old you are now.
And it is a conflict if anybody is employed by that company, owns more than 10% of that company's stock. If you do, you probably wouldn't be here. You'd be sitting in the Mediterranean somewhere. Or receive remuneration from that company in excess of $10,000. All right? So, or you have real estate that is impacted directly by that project. If you do, you have a conflict of interest and you need to fill out a conflict of interest form and abstain from voting. Doesn't preclude the board's consideration. So what I want to do is ask the secretary to call the roll and ask orally and record this in the minutes that we ask the question of whether or not there was a conflict of interest of each trustee. Or I can do it. Mr. Sampson?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a conflict?
No, sir.
Ms. Guy?
No, sir.
Ms. Glynn?
I do not.
No, sir.
Mr. Kotar?
I don't think that's
needed. Mr. Renteria?
It's a law.
Ms. Woods?
Yeah, it is.
It's a law to sign a conflict of interest if you have a conflict of interest. It's not law for him to go through and ask us all.
Right, but the controller's office wants you to, wants a reflection in the minutes of the meeting where the question was posed to the board.
You can abstain.
That would be the letter.
You can abstain.
I don't have to abstain. I'm just saying.
So the question is that I'm posing, does anybody have a conflict of interest requiring a disclosure?
Right.
So that's the question.
So if somebody has a conflict, they sign a piece of paper and say, I'm going to abstain because I have a conflict of interest. So, I mean, that's pretty...
If you do not have an interest, then the conflict is no.
Yeah, exactly. We're wasting.
Mr. Renteria, I think it was you. Do you have a conflict?
Negative.
Ms. Woods?
No.
Ms. Sims? Okay. For the record, the question was posed about a conflict of interest. It was defined and a question was posed whether any trustee has a conflict of interest, and each answered that they had no such conflict of interest.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. O'Hanlon.
And Dr. O'Brien, you had a recommendation?
I believe considering the presentation, the public hearing tonight, there have been no questions. Recommendation of administration would be to take action items A through D and F collectively to approve this 313 agreement and subsequent documentation. So action item A through D and F.
A through D and F.
So I would seek a motion to follow administration's recommendation to take action items A through D and F collectively.
Make a motion?
I'll second that motion.
Have a motion from Mr. Cotter and a second from Mrs. Woods that we approve action items 7A, B, C, D, and F as presented. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Seeing 7 for and none against, the motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. O'Hanlon. Thank you, Mr. Casey.
Item G.
Thank y'all again.
Item G is Goose Creek CISD Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, the CAFR, for the year ending June 30th, 2021.
Administration recommends approval.
I'll move for approval.
I have a motion from Mrs. Woods and a second from Mrs. Barat-Timms to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Seeing 7 for and none against, the motion passes. Item H, consideration of consent agenda. Dr. O'Brien?
This evening, the administration brings to the Board of Trustees the consent agenda recommendations. Number 1, resolution amending the school district's authorized representatives to the Texas Local Government Investment Pool, Tex Pool Prime, a public funds investment pool. Number 2, resolution amending the school district's authorized representatives to the Lone Star Investments. Number 3, adoption of resolutions casting ballot for the election of persons on the board of directors of the Chambers County Appraisal District and the Harris County Appraisal District. Number 4, purchase 47 refill stations for district high schools, junior schools, and auxiliary buildings. Number 5, purchase 15 school buses for GCCISD Transportation Department. Number 6, second option to extend competitive seal proposals for fine arts equipment, supplies, and related services. Administration recommends that this consent agenda be approved by the Board of Trustees.
I'd like to pull 4 and 5 for discussion.
Any others?
I'll move for approval of H1, 2, 3, and 6.
Second.
Have a motion from Mrs. Woods and a second from Mrs. Barat-Tim to approve action or consent agenda items 1, 2, 3, and 6 as presented. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Seeing 7 for and none against, the motion passes. Number 4, purchase 47 refill stations for district high schools, junior schools, and auxiliary buildings. Mr. Renteria?
Just want to elaborate a
Dr.
little
Price or Mr. Rasmussen can help us with this.
Good evening again.
Just in a short summary, what is,
The
can you
refill
elaborate
stations.
on the refill station?
The refill stations are a multi-stage water filtration system to help prevent any viruses from getting into the school's water system.
And how much are we paying for this?
We're using ESSER funds.
What?
ESSER funds, some of the funding we receive from the government.
Okay.
It's just like for water bottles, right? For them to go up and refill their water bottles?
It's to refill the water bottles. It's filtrated
Instead of
water.
a water fountain, it's a
Yes, and
bottle fill.
it's a no-touch, so it's a cleaner state of delivering water.
I'm good.
And purified.
And I think, Dr. Price, you can probably help with the buses as well. There's a question about purchasing 15 buses.
We need some more buses.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are still needing some more buses, and these are some of the replacement buses that were purchased through the bond, so they're just coming in. So
we don't purchase all the buses all at once. We do it periodically throughout the phase of the bond. I think this is phase 2 or phase 3 of the bus purchases.
I'd have to look that up. I didn't get with Mr.
That's fine.
Walter Scheid, but
that's fine.
It's in phases.
That
They'll
is
come in.
phase 3.
And this is just another phase that's coming in.
I'm good.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I would seek a motion for 4 and 5 collectively.
I'll move to approve.
Have a motion from Mrs. Guy and a second from Mr. Cotter to approve consent agenda items 4 and 5. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Seeing 7 for and 0 against, the motion passes. Future board agenda items, trainings, or meetings?
Just to note that administration went on a national conference considering the relationship between K through 12 and higher education, ranging from dual credit to AP recently. And we're building the relationship that we have with Lee College, but also considering other higher ed options. available to us, and we want to continue to build the opportunities that are available to the students of Goose Creek. Just wanted to make you aware of that, and to the point, to invite board members to come to the next opportunity we have at a national conference.
Sign us up. Anybody have agenda items that are not being covered? Trainings? What's coming up, Ms. Garcia?
December 1.
Okay, here. And everybody's got that on their calendars, I'm sure.
December 1?
And then everybody got the notice that I still say winter governance. Governance camp is coming up in March. It will be here before you know it.
TEC or TCE?
All right, and our next regular meeting is December, help me out here, December 6th. Okay. Anything else we need to consider there? All right, let's move on. Let me find my script.
Is that our last meeting, December 6th for this year?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Unless you know something we don't know.
No, I'm good.
All right, the board will now recess into closed meeting. According to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 072, 073, 074, 075, 076, 082, 083, 084, and 087. No action will be taken while the board is in closed meeting. The time is 8:21. Made while the board was in closed session. We will now proceed to item L, consideration of personnel. Dr. O'Brien.
Administration would recommend to the Board of Trustees to approve the elections and accept the resignations and retirements as presented.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Cotter and a second from Mr. Sampson to approve the motion. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Seeing 7 for and 0 against, the motion passes.
Administration now recommends, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551074, to deliberate regarding potential dismissal of probationary contract employee Jesus Farias. Administration's recommendation is to terminate.
That's Farias. But go ahead, you did good.
Move for approval. I'll second.
I have a motion from Mrs. Woods and a second from Mrs. Guy to approve the termination. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Seeing 7 for and 0 against, the motion passes.
Finally, administration would recommend that the Board of Trustees approve the purchasing of real estate in the best interest of Goose Creek CISD.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Cotter and a second from Ms. Woods to approve the purchase of real estate. Any discussion?
Yes. I just want to say this is going to be a good purchase, considering the situation over there and, doing the right thing.
Thank you, sir.
Be good for the school.
Anything else? All in favor, please raise your hand. Being 7 for and 0 against, the motion passes. Seek a motion to adjourn. I move we adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned at 9:34 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
You got it 4 minutes, Chef.
Oh, me go.
I'm going to make me a plate,
so I got to come back and sign.
Yes.
Hey.
Oh, yeah, everybody see Mr.
Hey, you know what?
Flood.
I need to set an appointment with you. Hold on. Let me